you, Carol. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. This is an amazing organization, and it's a true blessing to all the children you serve. So I'm a little nervous being up here in front of past, current, and possibly future bosses. It's like the ultimate job interview, right? No pressure. But you know, the question is, why do we do what we do? Every morning the alarm goes off, 5 a.m., sun's not even up, shower, get dressed, coffee, fix your hair, or maybe some of us. And when you get to work, it's fight after fight, battle after battle. Every time you turn around, somebody's there waiting to punch you in the face. Your expertise is called into question, and you are confronted by problems that seem to be multiplying at an exponential rate. You have your normal struggles, test scores, schedules, the leaky roof, peanut allergies. But now you also have to be a public health expert and a master of counterterrorism. When did being a virologist and a Navy SEAL become part of the job description? And thanks to social media, folks want to debate you on topics you never dreamed of. Right? Apparently, you are the mastermind behind at least a half dozen conspiracy theories. Right? Reality is not real, facts are fiction, and why did you change the boots on the green M&M? I know it was you. I like those boots. And just when you catch your breath, the flat earthers show up. OMG, OMG. So why do you do it? Why do you deal with the endless array of issues and problems? Why stick your neck out? For the prestige, the fame, the $1 million signing bonus? I don't know that. You do it because this work saves lives. You do it because you inspire love. You do it because at the end of the day, thanks to your actions, your students and their families have hope for a better tomorrow. How do I know? Because people like you once upon a time saved me. Because people like you loved me, inspired me, and gave me hope. Hope that one day I could rise above my situation and have a great life. So let me tell you a story. Picture this, Long Island, 1986. I had a mother, of course. I was in Long Island area. And I was a learning disabled fat kid, flunking out of school. I lost my father when I was 5 years old. He died in a car wreck. I was bullied mercilessly, and I was staring into the abyss. I had absolutely no hope. How could my life be anything but pain and suffering? Why go on? In my darkest time, there was my mother, Norma. And she was a great mother. She was always very supportive and encouraging. We both had insomnia. We spent many nights sitting at the kitchen table. And like any mom, she'd tell you, you're beautiful, you're so handsome, school's gonna turn around, but you don't believe your mom. Your mom's crazy. And seeing how desperate the situation is, my mother got a little tough. She said, hey, you're not the only person in this family who's ever had tough times. And she said, I think it's time you learned about your babcha, Eva. Now, babcha is the Ukrainian word for grandmother. And she was my father's mother. And I never really got to know her. She died in the same car crash as my dad. I only really knew her as the nice lady who brought over apple strudel. You know, as a chubby kid, that's how you identify people. You know, by what pastry they bring to your house. You know, if you showed up with a salad, we call the police. We didn't do that. And Mom went and told me, she said, hey, listen, your babcha, when she was your age, middle schooler, she was a superhero. I said, Mom, get out of here. What are you, crazy? How was babcha a superhero? She had magical apple strudel. What are you doing here? She says, no. When she was your age, she was growing up in Ukraine. And she wasn't worried about obesity like I was. She was worried about starving to death. Babcha and her family were victims of Stalin's Holodomor, which was the Ukrainian genocide. And it was a brutal event that many people don't even know about. Wanting to break the Ukrainians to his will, to force them into their collective farms. he took away all the food. They surrounded the country with the Red Army, and the soldiers came into the farms. They took all the crops, they took all the animals. They even went into the house, they ripped up the floorboards. Every morsel was gone. And they had to watch their friends and relatives suffer, starve, and die. This was the world my babcia was in. Families were so desperate, they did anything to survive. They ate first the cats and the dogs, then the bugs, excrement. The Ukraine at that time was silent. All the birds, the songbirds had been killed as food. And this was the world of my babcia. And after a few years of this, she made it through, and the remnants of her family made it through. And just as they started to rebuild their lives and pick up the pieces, Hitler was now master of Germany. And in 1941, he unleashed Operation Barbarossa, which was the invasion of the Soviet Union. And it was the largest land battle in the history of the world. And there was babcia on the front line. Her family was quickly captured. All of her relatives were killed. And she was the sole survivor, and she was brought into a camp. My babcia would spend the rest of the war as a slave for the Third Reich. And going into that camp, she was just about to lose hope. And that's at the nick of the moment, the babushkas showed up, the old women of the camp. They saw this beautiful teenage girl with nothing and nobody, and they came and they took pity on her. They wrapped a scarf around her head, made her hunch down to hide her beauty, and they actually smeared horse manure on her to try to scare off the German guards who might have some ill intention. In the camp, she met her husband, Eustace, and nature took its course, and they quickly had my father, who was also born into slavery. And staying together with the babushkas, her husband and her child, they made a pact that they would outlast this dictator. And sure enough, one day Hitler commits suicide, and they're free. Babcia had outlasted not only Stalin, but also Hitler. And I asked my mom, how in the world did she do this? How did she get through? Where did she find the strength? And my mom said the answer was easy. The answer was love. Babcia could not control what the dictators were doing to her, but she could control her reaction. That was her superpower. When she was faced with unspeakable evil, she would not let it consume her. She chose to be a person of love. And a few years after liberation, she got some help from the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and she was a single mother at this time, and her and her two boys wound up in Philadelphia. And her first night in America, she was homeless, she was penniless, she could not speak the language, she had to stuff garbage into the children's clothes to try to keep them warm. They slept the first night on the park bench. But babcia did not see this as a problem. She saw this as a good start. Because it was a good start because now she had a chance, and that's all she needed. It was her plan that she was going to rebuild the Boris family, that one day her children, or maybe even her grandchildren, me, would have great lives. She would not let evil wipe us from the earth. She would not let our family be erased from history. Love would be her legacy. It would be her choice. And hearing this story, I was completely awed. How in the world could I be related to such an immensely powerful woman? But I was also now terrified, because now I was on the hook. I owed it to her to have a great life, to not give up, to not go into the abyss, to fight on. But how? How could I be anything but a complete and total loser? I was a complete mess. I wanted to rise up, but I had no idea how to actualize it. And it was at that propitious moment my mom figured it out. She said, son, you gotta go play some football. And she knew the men who coached the team, she knew the program. She knew, yes, they wanted to win games, but it was all about changing lives. That these men were trying to build boys' character and trying to put them in a position to win for life. And right away you could see the magic start happening. I went out for the team, and the first thing they made us do was run a lap around the whole school. You know, it might have been a half mile, but for me, it might as well have been to the moon, okay? And I'm dry heaving. Yeah. And the captain, this kid Jason, comes over and he grabs me. He says, we're in this together. You're not going to quit. And he dragged me across the line. And the next day in school, walking down the hall, I hear, hi, Steve. Who's that? Must be another Steve talking to me. Whether you were the best kid or the worst kid, which I was, you were part of the family. And they all were going to take care of you. We were going to have you back, just like the Babushkas did with Babcha. They were there for each other. And my mom also got me some help in the classroom. She worked with the school. I got an IEP, and I got a resource teacher. I got Mrs. Dudek. Oh my God, Mrs. Dudek. She must have been this tall. She could walk under the podium, 100 pounds. If I was screwing up, which was often, she'd get up on a chair, scream in my face, and then grab my ear and jump down, just to make her point. And Mrs. Dudek, she taught me how to learn. I want you to think about that sentence. This beautiful woman taught me how to learn. And she got me to change my mindset. When I would look at homework, I said, oh, the teachers, the terrible homework and the test, what am I going to do? She says, it's not punishment, it's a way up. It's a road to success. And when you start looking at assignments and work like that, it's a whole different story. And it wasn't just her, it was the whole public school system was changing my life. The public school system was bringing me back from the abyss. And as things got better, my mom got excited. I was getting better at football and I was better at school. And she says, let's do this. You're going to go to a great college, a great academic college. You're going to get a football scholarship. You're going to meet a beautiful girl. Oh, there she is. You're going to have beautiful children and you're going to live happily ever after. And, even at that point, wow, this is preposterous. How could you even think this? But thanks to the teachers and thanks to the whole school district, I had a chance, and a chance is all you need. And as the years went on, the dream was happening. Everything my mom was saying was coming true. And then my junior year, my principal, Mr. Budeman, walked into the room. And he said, Steve, I got to see you outside. And I knew I wasn't in trouble. I wasn't smoking, having vape, right? But I was thrilled because when Mr. Budeman came to get you, and you were an athlete, it meant the college scout was there. I'm like, this is it. I'm going to get recruited. I'm going to get the scholarship. It's all coming together. And I went skipping down the hall. And we got to his office. There was no scout. It was just the two of us. And he turned to me and he got a little choked up and he said, Steve, I'm sorry. There's been a terrible crash. Your mom is dead. And just like that, I was back at the abyss. I was crushed. I had no hope anymore. And that is when my angel showed up. The school district, the town, the family, all the people who were there for me. In ways great and small, seen and unseen, always with love. We had my teacher, Mrs. Buckmaster, who would stay with me doing chemistry labs till like 5 o'clock at night, and lighting myself on fire with a Bunsen burner. I think that's why I'm bald. I think I burned my hair out or something. And then as I'm walking out the door, she goes, hey, here's $20, take your sister to a movie. She didn't have to do any of that, right? You can leave at 3. But that was love. And that's what education is all about. With unwavering resolve, all these people stood in the breach. They got me to realize my goals, my hopes, my dream, but not just mine. They helped fulfill the legacy of Babcha Eva. They helped to manifest her vow when she stared down Stalin and Hitler. Okay? They helped her vanquish evil. And they did it the only possible way. They did it with love. So the question is, why do you do it? You do it to change students' lives. You do it to bring people back from the abyss. And the only question now is how? We must make the school a home, not just a place. We must support the children and make it a family. We must continue to build our programming. Yeah, sports change lives, but it's not just that. My daughter hated sports. She got into the theater. And it's the same thing. Okay? It's a bunch of people, different skills, strengths coming together to achieve something bigger than themselves. It's a little different. When you're doing the soliloquy, nobody's trying to tackle you. It's a little different. But it's learning life skills, having friends, having a home. you know, and the art club, and the dance team. And my God, let's get the chess club going, right? One school I heard they even have a robotics team. Anybody here have a robotics team at your high school? That's great. Oh my God. You gotta watch them though. Make sure you gotta check on, make sure they're not building like a Terminator. You know, you walk by, you hear, I'll be back. You gotta start pulling plugs on. You know, that could get crazy real quick. But when you find that kid sitting alone at the lunch table, when you get the report from the social worker, find that kid a home. Plug them in to one of your great programs. Give them a place to belong. Give them hope for a better tomorrow. And let's not forget about the adults, right? We got to take care of each other, especially all the nightmare that we've all just gone through collectively. And I don't mean with a text or an email. Show up, face to face, give them a hug, let them know we're all in this together. A great friend of mine, a beautiful man, the best teacher I've ever known, you know, he inspired me so much in my life. He stopped me about a dozen times from throwing this book into the garbage when I got discouraged. He died a few months ago. He was suffering terribly, and we couldn't bring him back from the abyss. But that doesn't mean we give up the fight. We will have losses, but we have to go on for the sake of future generations. And that's why you do what you do. You go out there every day and suffer the slings and arrows, and you fight the good fight, because the children need you. They need your love. They need your help in changing their lives. We, the educators, we're the last best hope for this country, and we will not fail. And we will do it together, and we will do it with love. Thank you.